Hi, this is Jim's Little Boat. I'm Jim, of course, and I'm standing in front of my very empty boat shed. It's empty because almost all of my stuff is over at the Webbers. That's that wonderful couple I met that managed to snag a barn boat number 2551 for $1,000. And in chapter 1, we looked at the boat they bought. We called it the Find. They've been kind enough to let me follow along as they fixed it up. It didn't need a ton of work, but it needed some work on the keel and some bottom paint and some other issues. And they were kind enough to let me video that as they went along. So let's share with you now chapter 2, the fix. So Andy's got a whole machine shop and he can do anything he wants. And besides all that, he's got plenty of height and a lift. He can just pick up the boat. He won't have to do any of the messing around like I had to do. Well, doggone it, the lift at the home wouldn't work, so the Webbers are taking all of the bootstrap gear home so they can lift their boat up. More video to follow. The cart has to kind of match the boat height, so you can't just give people dimensions. And because Andy has the boat up in the air higher than I did at home, we put some 4x4s on the cart, and we seem to have the keel fully supported now. And he's ready to go ahead and start taking off the bolts. Just ever so gently lowering it out of there. Seems to be popping free. There you go, Andy. You're free.
Touchdown. We'll mark them for their orientation so we make sure we get them back into the hull correctly. So I've marked this one for the starboard side of the boat, and we'll do the same with the other side. The pin itself has a little bit of wear, but not a horrible amount. We have probably a total on here of a 30-second of play, which we figure is going to be good enough. It's going to get us through this season easily and probably a few more.
Like 10. So there it is. Andy's got it out of there. The pin is securely fastened in the keel, and it's not moving at all, so he doesn't need to address that. All of the pin is there. There's an acceptable amount of slop in the hinges. So basically, he's just got to clean this keel up and coat it. He's going to be ready to go this summer. Andy, I noticed you were holding a broken bolt. Can you hold it up a little higher and tell us how it came to be a broken bolt?
So shortly after getting the keel removed, I noticed that one of the bolts dropped out very quickly. A few minutes after inspecting it and seeing what was going on, I realized that I had this very short bolt here, and looked up into the threaded hole and realized that the remainder of it was still stuck in the hole. It was still threaded into the hole very tightly. There was no backing it out, and it was broken off about a 1/4 inch below recess.
Okay. So now you're screwed and tattooed, as we used to say in the Army. What are you going to do now?
Well, I took the rest of the night off and slept on that one a little while to think about what my next best options would be. And that turned into getting a little Dremel motor, or like a little dental style drill. And I had to visit Two Harbor Freights to get that one, by the way. But anyways, have a little carbide bit, and then from there began to just very gently drill the center of the drill out, to grind away the center of the drill and chip that out until finally I got it broken away enough that it fell out of the hole. But now at that point, I don't have enough thread diameter left on the ID of the bushing that's in there, and it doesn't have enough major diameter to it to put a thread insert in there.
Then you called Catalina Direct and you got a new idea.
Yep, I called Catalina Direct after a little bit of research and verified with them that they did have a kit, which is a little nut plate. Now their nut plate, the gentleman was excellent on his advice on where to find it. I was able to go directly to it. And thankfully in my instance, this is on the port side forward. So that's one of the easiest ones to locate inside the boat. So I just chose to run my drill now that I've had my broken drill out. I took a new drill and ran that up through that hole so that I could locate the exact spot on the inside of the boat. And now, even with his advice and buying the nut plates from Catalina Direct, I think I have a different idea in that I'm going to flatten off the area there where the fiberglass is inside the hull, and I'm just going to run a new stainless bolt all the way down through that. I'm confident that I can silicone it top and bottom, or perhaps there's a better product, but I will seal that bolt as it runs back through the hull, and I'm confident that I can give it all the strength that it had from the factory.
I haven't been at the Weber's in over a week. Let's see what they've done. Wow, there's a keel looking like it's ready to go. So the keel is installed, the bottom is painted, the boat is looking so nice. In a second I'm going to go and show you Amy's bright work. It looks great too. You can see Amy has been very hard at work stripping off the old finish off all this teaking. Amy, great job on the bright work. Can you kind of tell us what you did to get it looking this fine?
Yep. So it's all of the teak hadn't been refinished on the sailboat, and so because I have a fondness for teak, I decided to gloss it up. So after various layers of sanding, we put a teak oil on it, or teak stain, excuse me, and then a gloss cover. So there's 2 layers of teak stain, and then 3 layers of gloss coat over the teak. And so I think it's called cetral.
The C word.
Yeah,
I've
the
never
C
pronounced
word.
it either.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but I'm impressed. It turned out good. It was a learning process, and you know, if you got real close, it's not perfect, but it's perfect for me. So it'll be great, and it'll be beautiful on the boat once we get it all installed.
So I'm going to agree with you on beautiful on the boat. How are you going to keep it beautiful over the next 3 or 4 years?
Well, I figured that it's not going to, the salt water will probably run its course, but at that point in time, it'll have to be updated and reglossed every couple years according to
So Amy,
the bottle.
how did you make this boat look new?
Well, fortunately, I had a lot of help from the family, but the layers we did was, the first layer of sanding was 200 grit, and then the second layer of sanding, there's multiple layers of sanding. So the first layer was 200, the second layer was 400, 220, 400, and then it was 1,000, 1,500 grit, and then 2,000 grit, I believe. And then various levels of buffing and waxing to get it to look like it does now. Before this, it was a white, oxidized, bluish color. So this really brought out the true color of the boat.
Well, the Webers have been working like crazy, and the bottom is done, and it looks great. And the keel is ready to go back in, and it looks great. They've got the cable hooked up. That all looks good. This boat's dang near ready to go back in the
Tail
water.
a little bit, and we'll just kind of try to use the winch to pull the back end up, and we can use the jack to move the front end up.
At some length, we went over what happened to the one bolt, and he's got it coming down through the top now. Some bottom paint got into the threads, so Andy is going to take a tap and clean the threads up inside the weldment, and we'll watch him do that for a second, and then we will maybe go ahead and put in the keel. Things are coming along.
You want to be careful here to find the old thread. As you begin to start this, you'll feel it begin to screw in just like a bolt. And that's really all we're doing with this.
And you have to be careful, because if you screw up, it'll be cross-threaded beyond saving.
And then just running it up.
There he
through the
goes.
thread.
He's cleaning out that thread.
And this is a 5/16 18 thread.
5/16 18 thread.
Taps like this are available at just about any Ace hardware.
Here's Andy laying on his back, driving those bolts home. And
That's that one. Okay. We are there.
so by golly, the keel is in. So the keel is installed, the bottom is painted, the boat is looking so nice. All cleaned up and pretty before, but they've had so much work to do, it's naturally in a state of nastiness, but that'll all come clean very quickly. You can see that Amy's bright work is looking really nice. Great job on this teak, it just looks fabulous. I didn't really notice this earlier, but this boat has no electrical panel at all. Lucky Andy, lucky Amy. All they've got to do is fix it up the way they want it. So they don't have to deal with all the bad wiring before they can get to the new wiring. That is the original valve. They never had a sink installed in this boat, and that valve still works correctly. Andy replaced the keel cable tube, and he put a correct clamp on there. I imagine he'll put another one on before he's done. Here's the old keel cable tube. It's still serviceable, but it's a good thing that he replaced it. It's getting pretty old and brittle. It's almost 50 years old. You can see where the bolt comes through that Andy used to substitute instead of replacing the weldments. Looks pretty darn substantial to me. They are in the water. The boat floats, which is always a wonderful thing, and they're getting ready to take off from the launch site. That's the end of chapter 1. They launched at low tide, brought it across the bay, and parked it like they'd been doing it forever.